I spent years paying my parents' mortgage in secret to earn respect. But when my father humiliated me on Father's Day, I cut them off forever. I am 32, male, and work in tech. My dad, 61, is an old-school accountant who spent 41 years at the same firm. He never took more than a week off and believed missing work for your kid's graduation made you weak. His identity revolved around silent suffering, bringing home just enough to keep the lights on while complaining about his hard work. Growing up under his roof meant living by his code. Real men don't complain. Real men sacrifice. Real men earn respect through suffering. Anything less made you weak and pathetic in his eyes. I was always the disappointment. Instead of joining a soul-crushing firm like he wanted, I went into tech right after college. By 25, I was making serious money. And by 29, I earned more in a month than he did in a quarter. He hated it. He never said it outright, but his resentment seeped through every jab. "Must be nice sitting at a computer all day," he'd say. Or, "Tech jobs won't last. Your sister's doing real work." Always that tone, like I was pretending while real adults handled the hard stuff. He'd check stock prices of failing tech companies just to smirk and say, "See? House of cards." Meanwhile, I was building enterprise security systems that Fortune 500 companies paid 7 figures for. Then there's my sister Megan, 29, the golden child. She's a nurse making about $58,000 a year, and Dad acts like she's carrying the world. She's respectful, follows his rules, calls every Sunday. She's the grounded one, the loyal one, the one who understands real life. The hilarious thing? I funded her nursing degree and paid off her student loans when she graduated. Dad never knew because I made her promise not to tell him. She was grateful but confused about why I'd keep it secret. I knew how he'd twist it into a story about me showing off while she made something of herself. I became the family safety net. 3 years ago, my parents hit a rough patch with their mortgage. I stepped in, set up an account, and started making payments. That temporary arrangement became permanent. They stopped saying thanks and just expected it. I kept everything in my name, maintaining full control, and built a buffer of about $52,000 just in case. I'm not an idiot. I set up a separate checking account for their mortgage with automatic transfers from my main account on the 25th of each month. Each payment was $2,212.47 for principal, interest, and escrow. I even had a spreadsheet tracking every payment, interest rate changes, and the remaining balance. Their 30-year fixed mortgage was at 4.125%. Nothing special, but it was the principle of the thing. I could have paid it off completely, but something told me to keep that leverage. They never asked how I felt about bankrolling their lifestyle. They assumed I did it because I had easy money to throw around. The truth? I was trying to buy something money couldn't get, their respect. When Father's Day came this year, I thought maybe we'd hit a turning point. I hosted a barbecue at my place, not out of affection, but as a final test. I rented a tent, hired a bartender, and catered everything with Dad's favorites, spending nearly $2,500 on food and setup alone. Megan flew in from Portland for the weekend, playing peacekeeper as always. "Just try to have a good day with him," she kept saying while helping me set up. "He's still our dad." Easy for her to say, she was the golden child. Mom showed up early, rearranging everything I'd set up. By the time guests arrived, she was telling everyone she planned the whole thing and picked Dad's favorites. Whatever. The usual crowd showed up, my Uncle Rob, a couple of Dad's work buddies, some neighbors. Dad walked around like he was inspecting a construction site, pointing out a dead plant in my garden and asking if I'd fix the loose gutter on the north side of the house. I kept smiling, playing the good son, ensuring drinks stayed full and everyone had a decent time. Mom soaked up the attention like she planned the Super Bowl. Megan gave me little thumbs-up signs whenever Dad and I managed a 30-second conversation without it turning sour. After dinner, with people relaxed and the second round of drinks flowing, I decided it was time. I'd been carrying the Rolex box in my pocket all day, feeling it press against my leg like a live grenade. I caught Dad alone by the edge of the yard, looking at my neighbor's new boat. "Got a minute?" I asked. He nodded, his face expressionless as always around me. "Wanted to give you this," I said, handing him the small box. "Happy Father's Day." He took it, turned it over, and opened it. The Rolex Submariner Black Dial Classic gleamed inside. It cost me nearly $15,000, and I had it engraved with, "Thank you for everything." I'd spent 3 weeks researching the perfect watch, the kind that says, "I made it." He stared at it for what felt like forever, then looked up at me. No smile, no surprise, nothing. "You think money can buy respect?" he said, his voice flat. "You'll always be less than everyone else. Just like that, like I was a stranger trying to bribe him for attention, like I was nothing. I didn't speak, I didn't need to. I reached over, took the box back, closed it, and slipped it into my pocket. Then I turned and walked away, straight through the yard, past Megan calling my name, past Mom mid-story with a neighbor, past the bartender offering another drink. I got in my car and drove off without saying goodbye to anyone. In my rearview mirror, I saw Megan standing at the edge of the driveway looking confused. Dad hadn't even moved, still standing there, looking at nothing. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the watch box on my coffee table. The test was over. He'd failed spectacularly. All those years of trying to earn his respect, of paying their mortgage without acknowledgement. For what? So he could tell me I'd always be less than everyone else. My phone started blowing up around 9 p.m. First Megan, then Mom, then Uncle Rob. I turned it off. I'd played the good son for the last time. I'd thrown my last barbecue, paid my last bill. Tomorrow I'd show them what happens when you push away the only person keeping your house of cards from collapsing. The next morning, I had 63 missed calls and 22 voicemails. Mom demanded I return the watch, the food, everything. Dad called me ungrateful, saying I embarrassed him in front of people who matter. I played the messages on speaker while making coffee, sorting them into mental categories. Guilt trips, threats, fake concern, genuine confusion. That was just Megan. The most interesting was from Uncle Rob, who sounded worried that I'd made a scene by walking away quietly. Monday started normally. Coffee, laptop open, pretending to answer emails while the weekend drama hung over me like a dark cloud. I wasn't planning anything crazy until I listened to a voicemail from Dad. He used that calm voice he deploys before getting nasty. You embarrassed me in front of people who really matter. If you think you can throw money around and rewrite who you are in this family, you're more pathetic than I thought. That was it, the tipping point. They didn't know I'd been paying their mortgage for years. It started as a 6-month favor during a rough patch, but became permanent. They stopped asking how it got paid, stopped pretending to be grateful. What they really didn't know was that I kept everything in my name with full control. I built a buffer of $52,000, enough to cover almost a year's payments if anything went south. That morning, I pulled it all out, transferring the entire $52,000 to my personal account in one go. I logged into the mortgage account at First National Midwest Bank, a clunky interface unchanged since 2010. I'd set up the payment portal to auto-pay from my special account, categorized as a family expense in my bookkeeping system. 2 clicks canceled the auto-pay. 3 more removed my name as an authorized payer. Then I called the mortgage company to confirm. The call took 12 minutes. The guy asked if I was sure, offering to connect me with their retention team. No, I told him. I'm just no longer responsible for the payments. Let the original borrowers figure it out. By late afternoon, Mom found out. Her texts went from confused to pissed to something I hadn't heard from her in a long time, fear. You weren't really going to let them take the house, one message said. I didn't answer. I went for a walk, came back to 4 voicemails from Uncle Rob, 1 from Megan, and an email from Dad with the subject line, "We need to talk." I didn't open it. Instead, I opened my special folder containing subfolders organized by year, each with bank statements, transfer records, and screenshots of text messages where they'd asked for money. 3 years of documented financial support, never with a thank you that wasn't followed by another request. The next day at 8 a.m., someone buzzed my apartment. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, a knock. I checked the peephole. It was Mom. I watched her stand there calling my name for 25 minutes. She left a note I tossed without reading. I worked from home, setting up an email filter to send anything from my parents' addresses to a special folder I wouldn't look at. I called my building's property management company, informing them I wasn't accepting visitors unless I cleared them first. That night, another knock, 2 short ones. I thought it might be Mom or Megan. Nope. It was a guy who looked like he used to work security at a strip mall, black jacket, gray pants. He stared at me and said, "Your dad sends his regards," then walked away. No threats, just a message. I'd installed a doorbell camera after the first unwanted visit. I saved the footage and the license plate from my ring cam. The next morning, I noticed fresh marks on my lock, like someone tried to pick it but wasn't in a hurry. My neighbor, an older, nosy guy, said he saw someone asking what time I usually get home. The guy wasn't friendly. I filed a police report that afternoon, listing everything, the visit, the damaged lock. But I added one detail that changed everything. I told the officer the name of the man I'd seen. I recognized him from the Father's Day barbecue. He wasn't just a random guy. He was one of Dad's work friends, there to wish him well, barely saying a word, just drinking whiskey. Vincent, I think his name was. The officer typed everything into his tablet, not reacting until I mentioned the name. "Vincent Kruger?" he asked. "That sounds right," I said. "Balding guy, maybe 50, always looks like he's deciding whether to punch you." The officer nodded slowly. "I'm going to need to see that doorbell footage." I showed him the clips on my phone. He took screenshots and asked for the originals to be emailed. "You know this guy?" I asked. "Let's just say Mr. Kruger's name comes up from time to time," he said. "Not always in a good way." Turns out Vincent was a licensed private investigator until a few years back. Now working in a gray area, hired by people who don't want questions asked. The cop wouldn't say it directly, but his tone implied Dad paid him to rattle me, dig into my life, maybe worse. What really lit the fuse? Vincent had visited my ex, Natalie. We hadn't talked in over a year. Things ended cleanly, no drama. She texted me around midnight after the police left, saying some guy claiming to handle a family matter showed up at her office asking about my finances, my mental health, if I'd ever talked about hurting someone or doing anything crazy with money. I called her immediately. She picked up on the first ring. "What exactly did he say?" I asked. "He said he was looking into a family matter for your dad," she explained. "Started off normal, how long we dated, when we broke up. Then it got weird. He wanted to know if you talked about your family's money, if you seemed obsessed with your dad, if you seemed unstable." "What did you tell him?" "I shut him down, told him you were stable and he had no business asking." "Did he give you a card?" "No, but I took a picture of him leaving and got his license plate." She texted the images while we talked. Same guy, same Dodge Charger. At first, she thought he was a debt collector until he dropped Dad's full name. That's when it clicked. Dad wasn't just angry, he was planning something. Maybe not a lawsuit, but something worse. He was setting me up, painting me as unstable, reckless, untrustworthy. And he underestimated how much I knew. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened a file I'd kept buried for years, a digital folder called Just In Case, stored on an encrypted external SSD in a fireproof box. I'm not paranoid, just cautious. When you work in enterprise security, you learn to keep backups. The folder contains screenshots, emails, financial records, stuff I saved in case they pulled something like this. Like emails between Dad and Marcus, his business partner, scheming shady tax write-offs. Scans of checks Mom deposited into her personal account from funds that shouldn't have touched her name. Sketchy enough to get them audited or blacklisted. I had emails from 2018 where Dad and Marcus discussed categorizing personal expenses as business deductions. A family vacation to Scottsdale filed as a professional development retreat. Kitchen renovations listed as home office improvements. Small individually, but they added up to systematic tax misrepresentation. Then there was my grandfather's trust. He left a substantial trust fund for Megan and me to be split 50-50 when we turned 30, unless one of us was deemed unfit to manage the funds. The trust held $850,000, locked until we turned 30, except for education, medical emergencies, or first-time home purchases. What nobody knew, not even Megan, was that after Grandpa died, I was named temporary trustee. That power was supposed to transfer to the bank's trust department 6 months later, but nobody filed the paperwork. I was still in charge, I never touched it, didn't need to. But when I checked the statements, something was off. Megan's half should have been intact. It wasn't. Nearly $145,000 had been moved over 3 years, disguised as administrative expenses, invoices from non-existent companies, even donations to charities with blank websites. The work was sloppy. It took me 2 hours to trace where the money went. Every trail led back to my parents. They'd been siphoning off Megan's inheritance to support their lifestyle, mortgage, car upgrades, a failed house flipping scheme that tanked in 2021. Transaction logs told the story. Transfers to an LLC called Summit Educational Initiatives for Tuition Assistance. $22,500 in 2019, $27,800 in 2020, $31,000 in 2021, and 2022. Except Summit wasn't real. Its address was a UPS store mailbox, and its EIN was registered to Marcus's home address. From there, the money moved to Family Capital Management with Dad as the sole signatory. Then to their personal checking, credit card payments, and payments on a vacation property in Sedona they never mentioned. They didn't just steal from me. They stole from their daughter, the one who still answered their calls. I organized it all, clean, easy to read with backups, screenshots, transaction logs, dates, packaged into a PDF with receipts. I sent it to Megan. She called in less than 20 minutes. I expected tears or denial. She didn't cry or yell, just waited, then said, "They stole from me?" "Yes," I replied. "And they tried to ruin you." "Looks like it," she said. "Then let's burn it down." I told her I'd handle the rest, but I wasn't ready for what she did next. The next morning, Megan flew in without telling anyone, showing up at my apartment with a duffel bag and a folder of her own receipts. She'd been collecting evidence too, never thinking she'd use it. "I thought I was crazy," she said, spreading her documents across my dining table. "All these years I thought I was bad with money or forgetting things." Her evidence was different, but complementary. Texts from Mom asking her to lie to a bank teller about deposit sources. Dad's emails about needing access to her accounts during nursing school to help manage things. A loan application for her first apartment where Dad forged her signature as guarantor on a separate line of credit. She found out 6 months later when collections called about missed payments on a card she'd never applied for. That same day, I sent a copy of the entire file to my parents' accountant, not to threaten, but to warn, because what came next wouldn't be quiet. 2 days of silence followed. I imagined their reactions: denial, panic, rage. But nothing prepared me for what happened. On day 3, I got an email, not from them, but from their lawyer. Short, sweet, no signature, no letterhead. My clients request an immediate cease and desist. Any further distribution of private financial information will be considered a criminal offense. This is your only warning. It was a thinly veiled, hastily written threat. The first sign they were losing control. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Vance, who specializes in financial crimes and had handled security breaches for my clients. His response came in 15 minutes. "This is bluster. They're hoping to scare you. They know they're exposed, but they think you won't push further." I forwarded it to Megan. She didn't respond with words, just a photo. The outside of our parents' house, a big red foreclosure notice staked in the lawn. Dated that morning. They thought I was bluffing. The mortgage company moved faster than I expected. They were likely already in default before I pulled my money. My payments of $2,212.47 each month were just keeping the wolves at bay. When that stopped, the clock ran out. No savings, no backup plan. The house they lectured me from was gone. What broke me happened that afternoon. Megan went to the house without telling me, probably because she knew I'd try to stop her. She knocked. Mom answered, standing in silence for almost a minute, like she couldn't decide whether to hug or slap her. Then Dad appeared and stared at Megan like she was a ghost. Finally, he spoke. "You're as worthless as he is." Megan didn't flinch. She handed him a copy of the trust records, pointed to the bottom line, and asked, "How do you think this ends?" Dad's face went blank like someone flipped a switch. Unexpectedly, he sat down muttering about building everything from nothing, how we didn't understand pressure, how we were spoiled and ungrateful. It should have been the end. But that night, someone broke into my car. They didn't take anything, just left an envelope with a photograph of me taken 2 days earlier leaving my apartment. On the back, in unfamiliar handwriting, 3 words: "You went too far." I documented everything before touching it. Photos of the envelope's placement on the passenger seat, the car door showing subtle tool marks, the photo itself held by the edges. I called the police again. The same officer arrived in 20 minutes, took the photo in an evidence bag and asked, "You got somewhere else you can stay for a few days?" I called Megan, told her I was going out of town for a few days to lay low. She didn't hesitate, saying she'd do the same. We both knew what it meant. This wasn't just about money, respect, or revenge anymore. It had become something else. And whatever our parents were planning, it wouldn't be legal. I left town that night, packed a bag, turned off my phone, and drove north, telling no one where. Megan and I agreed to disappear for a few days, letting things cool off or making them nervous in the quiet. I checked into a Hilton garden 3 hours away, paying cash and using a backup credit card unconnected to my normal accounts. It's not paranoia if they're after you. When your enemies don't know what you're doing, they make mistakes. I returned 3 days later. My apartment was untouched. Building security cameras showed no one near my door since I left. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. 48 hours of continuous monitoring with no suspicious activity. It didn't reassure me. I knew Dad. This wouldn't be loud. He'd try to ruin my life quietly, surgically, in pieces. So I moved first. My parents didn't know I'd already talked to a lawyer specializing in financial crimes and embezzlement. Not just Vance, but a team of estate specialists, forensic accountants, and a private investigator who did things by the book. Megan and I signed everything together during a 3-hour meeting at the law firm's conference room, providing full access to our accounts, signing affidavits about our knowledge of the trust, and granting power of attorney for specific legal actions. The moment Megan saw the money was gone, she gave me full permission to act. Within 48 hours, the attorney filed an official complaint with the state, submitting full documentation, forgeries, unauthorized transactions, fake invoice trails, even signatures Mom tried to forge. A forensic handwriting expert confirmed it airtight. The complaint was 47 pages, detailing 16 instances of financial fraud, 9 cases of identity theft, and 11 counts of misappropriation of trust funds. Each allegation backed by over 200 pages of indexed, annotated evidence. But that wasn't the best part. The house was in foreclosure, but they hadn't moved out. Thinking they had time, I pulled the final string. I called the HOA president in their neighborhood, pretending to be a prospective buyer with concerns about the neighborhood's reputation. I casually mentioned strange financial activity involving a property on their street, hinting at a possible investigation without naming names. "I'm looking at a property on Lakeside Drive," I said. "But I've heard rumors about financial issues with one of the homeowners, something about a trust fund and irregular activities. I'd hate to buy into a neighborhood where that's happening." The HOA president, a retired HR director named Gary who lived for gossip, practically salivated. "Which property exactly?" he asked, not hiding his interest. "I'd rather not say," I replied. "It's just concerning when you're making such a large investment." 2 days later, they were hit with a formal request from the HOA board, a certified letter demanding an appearance at the next meeting to address concerns about activities impacting property values. I knew because Megan had access to their mail forwarding. I knew they'd panic. They cared more about status than anything, more than family, more than money. Having their financial dirt leak into the community would crush them. The next day, Megan called. Dad had tried calling her twice, then left a message. He wasn't yelling. He was begging, saying they were losing everything, being humiliated, that people were whispering that they needed help. Megan didn't answer, just sent me the voicemail. Word spread among their friends and neighbors. Not because of anything I did publicly, but because that's how small communities work. People notice foreclosure signs, strange men visiting houses, arguments through open windows. They whisper at grocery stores. My parents became the subject of quiet conversations at neighborhood gatherings. Former friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up. The quiet social death they feared most. The next morning, Mom called for the first time in weeks, crying, saying they were being watched, that they'd lost everything. "We just need a little help to get back on our feet," she sobbed. "Your father is devastated. He can't even look people in the eye anymore. Please, we're your parents." I let her finish, then told her the truth. I wasn't done yet. That evening, Dad called from an unrecognized number. His voice was hollow, defeated. "Look, I know I've been hard on you," he said, clearing his throat awkwardly. "Maybe too hard, but we raised you. We gave you everything. How could you do this to us? We're sleeping on Marcus's couch right now. The same Marcus you did those sketchy tax write-offs with," I asked. "Silence. Please," he said. "We can work something out. I'm sorry about the watch. I was jealous. Okay? Is that what you want to hear? I was jealous of my own son." For a second, I almost felt something. Then I remembered Vincent at my door, the marks on my lock, the photo in my car. "Did you send someone to threaten me?" I asked. "What? No, that's not. Vincent was just supposed to talk to you." "And Natalie? Was he supposed to talk to her too?" Another pause. "I was worried about you. I thought she might know if you were okay. You were digging for dirt." "Look, I made mistakes," he said, his voice cracking. "We both did. But we're your parents. You can't just walk away. People are talking. The bank is taking the house. Your mother can't stop crying. We need your help. Just a loan to get us back on our feet. We'll pay you back. I swear." I almost laughed. "Like Megan's trust fund? The one you were supposed to pay back." "That was different," he whispered. "No, it wasn't. You took what wasn't yours because you thought you deserved it. You lied, stole, threatened. And now you want me to bail you out so you can treat me like garbage while I fund your lifestyle." "Please," he said. "I'll do anything. We can start over. I'll be different this time." I laughed. "You've been the same person for 61 years. You're not changing now." After that, silence. No more visits. No more threatening envelopes. My parents disappeared from social circles, canceled accounts, stopped attending community events, rarely left the house. I knew what it meant: damage control. While this was snowballing, Megan found something we'd overlooked: a second escrow account under a shell LLC set up 3 years ago, tied to a business name nobody in the family recognized. It had Dad's name but listed Megan and me as legacy stakeholders. She discovered it in old tax returns, a Schedule K-1 listing partnership income from Heritage Future Planning LLC, showing minimal activity to avoid raising flags. The state business registry showed it was created 1 month after Grandpa died with $1,000 in initial capital. The registered agent was a Wyoming formation service for privacy, but the mailing address matched Dad's P.O. box. Our lawyer explained that legacy stakeholders meant it was Dad's stash spot. He pulled money from the trust, funneled it through the sham LLC, and tucked it away. There was still $92,000 in there. We froze it. Our attorney filed an emergency motion to freeze all assets associated with the LLC, citing the ongoing trust fraud investigation. The judge granted it within hours, and the bank locked down every penny. That night, Megan texted me, "You should hear this." She forwarded a voicemail from a burner number. It was Dad, sounding slurred like he'd been drinking. He rambled about mistakes, how he didn't understand what he was trying to protect. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "I know you think you're winning, but I'm not the only one who knows things." I replayed it 10 times. Something in his voice wasn't just defeat. It was fear. The next morning, a woman named Rachel showed up at my office. Mid-40s, sharp voice, glasses too big for her face. She said she worked with Dad years ago and had something I needed to see. I didn't let her in. We went to a coffee shop down the street, sitting at a corner table with my back to the wall, full view of the exits. She slid a flash drive across the table. "He made copies of everything," she said. "Bank stuff, your mother's accounts, and something else." She looked around and whispered, "In policies, old ones, the kind that pay out when someone disappears." I left without finishing my coffee. At home, I opened the files, scanned policies from the early 2000s. One had my name, another Megan's. Beneficiaries, Mom and Dad. In the notes of one, someone had handwritten untraceable if overseas. The policies were substantial, $750,000 on me, $500,000 on Megan through a Cayman Islands carrier I'd never heard of, both with double indemnity clauses for accidental death or disappearance, both waiving investigation requirements beyond local police reports. The blood drained from my face. This wasn't just greed, humiliation, or theft. This was darker. They had plans, backup plans. I remembered a trip they took in 2019 to Costa Rica, supposedly a vacation. They stayed an extra 3 weeks. No explanation, just silence. I thought they were fixing their marriage. Now I wasn't sure. I pulled up archived emails searching for anything about that trip. I found a thread where Mom mentioned meeting financial advisors there, talking about international estate planning opportunities. It sounded rehearsed, like she was repeating something she'd been told. That night, I called Megan. "We were never just insurance," I said. "We were the exit strategy." She didn't argue. They never planned to give us anything. They were planning to leave. I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about that policy. Costa Rica. Dad's voicemail. "I'm not the only one who knows things." Did they ever seriously consider cashing in, pretending, starting over? I didn't want to believe it, but I didn't trust them to water a plant, let alone value a life over a payout. I met Vance the next morning, handing over the flash drive. He examined the insurance documents, his expression growing grimmer. "These are technically legal," he said, "but structured to raise serious red flags. The beneficiary arrangement, these clauses." He shook his head. "We need to freeze these immediately." He started the process, filing emergency motions in 3 jurisdictions, calling in favors from international insurance law colleagues, setting up a conference call with regulatory authorities. He also noted that the trust theft, potential fraud, and harassment warranted criminal charges. "We have enough for wire fraud, identity theft, misappropriation of fiduciary funds," he said, organizing documents. "These are potential felonies." We didn't press charges. Not yet. We gave them a deadline. It wasn't about money. Megan and I didn't need it. We wanted a clean break. No house, no apology, no vague Christmas calls for help. Just a legal, documented, irreversible end. The terms were simple: relinquish all access to both trust accounts, provide a signed affidavit admitting financial wrongdoing. Leave the state for good. No calls, no emails, no threats. We drew up 17 pages of legal documents detailing their actions and requirements. Comprehensive releases of all trust claims, notarized admissions of fraudulent transfers, a binding non-contact agreement with liquidated damages of $50,000 per violation. We gave them 7 days. On the 4th day, my phone rang. It was Dad, his voice desperate, broken. "We have nothing left," he said. "We're staying with your mother's sister. Nobody will talk to us. The HOA is spreading rumors. We're done." I said nothing. "Please," he begged, "just let us keep a little. We're your parents." "No," I replied. "Parents don't do what you did. Sign the papers by tomorrow. Then leave. I don't want to see or hear from either of you again. A pause, then Mom sobbing. She'd been listening. You're killing us, she cried. After everything we did for you. I hung up. The next day, they signed everything in defeat. All 17 pages notarized and witnessed by Vance's paralegal, who drove out to meet them. They signed over remaining trust rights, acknowledged the fraud, agreed to the non-contact order, and confirmed in an affidavit they would leave the state within 30 days and not return. In exchange, we didn't press criminal charges, pursue additional civil penalties, or expose them to their remaining friends. We just cut them off completely. I haven't heard from them since. Last I checked, they left the state. The HOA fined them for disrupting the community. Their names no longer appear on escrow documents. Their accountant dropped them. Vance's investigator confirmed they moved to Arizona, a small town outside Phoenix, living in a rented condo, driving a 10-year-old car instead of Dad's precious SUV, working part-time jobs, keeping low profiles, no social media, no community involvement, just existing. I donated the Rolex quietly. It was gone. In the end, it wasn't about proving a point. It was about cutting the cord they thought they had wrapped around my neck. When it snapped, it was silent, permanent, just the way it had to be. It's been almost a year since everything went down. I wasn't planning to update, but recent events made me think it was time. I got a handwritten letter, 2 pages in an envelope with no return address, postmarked from Idaho. I knew the handwriting. Mom's. The first half was the usual guilt trip, saying they only did what they thought was necessary, that they never stopped loving us, even when we became strangers. I didn't finish reading it, but the second page was different. It said, "Your father didn't tell you what he did with the rest." That line stuck with me. What rest? I thought. I contacted Vance. Turns out there was a third account offshore, not in Mom's name directly, but tied to the same shell company used in the trust siphoning. No money in it anymore, but it existed. Vance traced it through banking records, an account in the Caymans established in 2017, funded with 6 transfers totaling approximately $178,000 from the Shell LLC. The money was withdrawn over several months in early 2022, right when our investigation heated up. Mostly cash, untraceable. The investigator found evidence of 3 more LLCs registered in Nevada, Delaware, and Wyoming, all using variations of the same naming convention: Heritage Planning Ventures, Family Legacy Solutions, Generational Asset Protection. Each had minimal paper trails, potentially hiding more funds. Megan and I talked about it. For now, we're letting it go. Some things aren't worth tearing apart, especially when the people behind them are already living like ghosts. Meanwhile, Megan and I rebuilt our relationship. Not the superficial one we had while pleasing our parents, but something real. We meet for dinner once a month, talking about work, life, whatever. No drama, no guilt, no family legacy. The trust has been restructured under a proper financial institution, and our shares are growing steadily. I've moved on. New apartment, new security system, new outlook. If you followed this story to the end, what do you think? Was I right to cut them off? Should I have gone further or held back? And that last letter, was there something more behind it? How would you have handled